I would like to introduce Dr. Maxwell Lawrence. Dr. Maxwell Scott Lawrence is Clinical Chief and Executive Director of Perioperative Services at Yale New Haven Hospital and Assistant Professor in the Department of Neurosurgery. Dr. Lawrence's area of clinical interest is in the minimally invasive treatment of spinal disorders and spinal tumors, including stereotactic radial.
We're short on time.
Okay.
Don't
worry
about
about
it. Just,
So in his administrative role, he oversees the operational, financial, and quality performance of perioperative services, along with our two other guests. And Dr. Lawrence's primary research focus is identifying the ways in which we can drive improved quality and value in healthcare delivery, determining practical implementation of methods at Yale New Haven Hospital. Additionally, I would like to introduce Dr. Trevor Banack, as well as Susan Maxwell. Dr. Banack is the Vice Chair for Clinical Operations in Perioperative Services at Yale New Haven Hospital, as well as an Assistant Professor in the Department of Anesthesiology. And Susan joins us in August of 2011 as Director for Women's Services and was promoted to Vice President for Perioperative Services. And her scope expanded to include surgical services in the Level 1 trauma program.
Thank you. Thanks for that very kind introduction. No, it's true. You know, you have to take the wins where you can get them. So once a year, we come around to each department and we give a little state of the state of perioperative services for all the surgical departments in anesthesiology. We think it's important just because it's where we spend so much of our time as surgeons and anesthesiologists, where we live, and the operations and running of the area is important. So this just gives us an opportunity to share with you the kinds of things we're working on, and importantly, ask you for help where we need it. So I'm going to start off here. Trevor and Susan will tag team this a little bit. I know, are we got a hard stop at 8:30, or what's our at 8:30? So we'll try to move through this kind of quickly and give some time for questions. In the past, we've done this, I think, at faculty meetings. It's great to have a slightly larger audience to include the residents in it. Such an important part of how things run. Just disclosures here. I'm a co-founder of a company called Nomad Health. Not really relevant to the discussion today. We're going to go through our metrics, kind of show you how we track the data, how we track our progress, cover our vision statement, a little update on ambulatory surgery strategy. It's a changing face of Yale New Haven Health as we think about how we provide outpatient care in a different way. And then talk about our subcommittees and how the work gets done. You'll probably all be most interested in the operations component of it, but we're going to share with you all the details. So our dashboard, this is how we look at our progress. And so this is the fiscal year. Hospital fiscal year ends in September of each year. So this is September 2017. If you focus kind of on the right column here, you'll see that our overall volume is down somewhat. So down about 2.1%. Utilization fairly flat at about 75%. That's where we want to hold it. So we actually adjust our staffing and available rooms to meet utilization targets of about 75%. Average hours per case up 0.6%. That's really relevant. If you look at the last 5 years, the average hours per case has gone up steadily year over year. And what that really reflects is an increasing level of complexity. You can also validate this information by looking at case mix index and the complexity of the patients that we're treating. So what we're doing here in this hospital is more complicated than what has left the hospital for other centers that are no longer under our purview. So it's a changing mix of what we're caring for. You see it also in the average cost per discharge, which is up actually about 9% this year. Average cost per case, that's the cost that we attribute to what goes on in the operating room, roughly flat, up about 0.7%. First case on-time starts, up 14% across the institution. Average turnover time, flat to up slightly, around 1.3%. You'll hear more about that in a little bit. Near-miss events, this is the staff identifying when harm almost reaches patients, up 52%. That's outstanding. And our serious safety events down almost 60% this year. Those are the never events that we want to see never happen in the institution. Wrong-sided surgeries, wrong patients being operated on, retained surgical items, down 60% this year. Overall press Gainey is up 0.3%. Sounds small, but to move these numbers, as everyone in this room probably knows, is an extremely heavy lift. And the last number is just to count the number of press Gainey reports. So I thought I'd pull it out specifically to urology. How is urology done from the data that we look at? Urology's volume is actually up about 3.6% this year. Cost per discharge up pretty healthy. Cost per case in the OR up a little bit, 7%. First case on-time starts, congratulations, up 16%. Significant improvement there. And average turnover time up 8.7%. I am sure that is in no small part due to the move from Sisto from East Pavilion down to South. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. Press Ganey scores again up 0.4%. Sounds small, but that's a huge accomplishment and a huge win. SRC, the case is done. If we take a specific SRC, I pull this up only really for one reason, and that's to show this. First case on time starts up 115%. That shows the operating rooms getting ready in a more reliable fashion. People showing up on time. We've got a continued focus on operations and fidelity of the services provided on that campus. And then I thought if I did York SRC, I had to do York Street as well. Their first case on time starts flat, but significantly better than the other campus at about 60%. Any questions about the data? A way that we have of tracking either by service, by location, or we can actually get down to the individual physician, and we can do items like turnover, like what your specific turnover time feels like, what your cost per case looks like, how your first case on time starts. I didn't want to embarrass anybody, but for those who are interested in that information, we can drill down to that level of detail. We spent some time thinking about our mission statement, our vision statement rather, for perioperative services. And so I'm just going to read through this. Our goal is to inspire an engaged team to deliver innovative, patient-centered care with world-class outcomes, one surgery, one family, one patient at a time. You'll notice that we're incorporating themes that Yale New Haven Health and Yale Medicine are emphasizing over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, innovation and patient-centered care. And we really wanted this to be a personal statement. Our goal is that for everyone who's interacting in our operating rooms over the course of the next year, we'll really learn this by heart and think about this as we provide care in our ORs. And we wanted it to be personal because what we do is deeply personal to everyone that we serve, and we're lucky to be able to do so. So we're thinking about this at the individual level and then measuring it on a larger scale. I'm going to change gears right now, talk a little bit about ambulatory strategy. Those average hours per case that we saw trending up over the course of the last 5 years, demonstrating increased complexity, really shows that we are not positioned or able to take care of bread and butter cases in an efficient fashion in an ambulatory setting. And that's the primary reason. There are a number of factors, but that's the primary reason we really have not seen volume growth. Volume growth that's occurring is all heading to ambulatory centers that can do really rapid turnover in single specialty fashion. So a couple of strategic investments that we're making. One is the McGivney Musculoskeletal Ambulatory Surgery Center. This is a mock-up drawing of what the entrance to that facility will look like. That's going to be for musculoskeletal care. Shoreline Medical Center, you saw the recent announcement that there's going to be a significant investment and renovation of Shoreline, which currently has 3 operating rooms and is going to have 6 operating rooms moving forward up in Guilford. And then lastly, many of you in this room have been in discussions about what we would like a stone center to look like, a place where we could efficiently provide care for kidney stones. And we appreciate all of your involvement in that process. That's really in the beginning stages. I think you heard Rick mention it in the, some of you may have heard Rick mention it in our opening kickoff this year. But we hope that that's a project that we'll really see kick into high gear over the course of the next year. I'm going to turn it over to Trevor, talk a little bit about our subcommittees and how we divide up the work.
Thank you. As some of you know and some don't know, the members of the perioperative services is broken up into different groups. At the top is the perioperative executive leadership team, which there are some members in this room who are part of. This is made up of the chairs, the directors, and some of the vice presidents of the hospital. This is where we do a lot of our strategic planning. The surgical services core team, this is where a lot of the ideas and the projects, we get quarterly reports out from our different subgroups, and our core team is made up of different members who head up our subgroups, which include perioperative operations, surgical service operations, the cervical service people development, surgical service patient experience. We have a finance team, we have a quality and safety, and we have a McGivney steering committee. So we have a lot of different projects. We do a ton, a lot of that you guys don't actually see. So To highlight, as Max said, McGivney is one of our big projects over the next upcoming year, and that should be rolling out in the summer of 18. Some of the other things that we've done over the past year that you may have felt or have seen, the Net Presenter. We get a lot of our information about the different projects that we do that get presented. You see that board outside the South Pavilion OR and various screens as well. Mobile Heartbeat, we've rolled out Mobile Heartbeat over the past year to the different providers in the operating room. And there are different projects that we do with the Mobile Heartbeat to try to improve communication. You'll see more over the next coming year. We get the newsletter out, also trying to update you on the monthly. So if you can give that a look, it'll give you a real-time view of what's going on month by month. The SRC, the sterile, we're trying to renovate that. That's a major redo, and you'll be able to see the benefits of that if you work over to SRC in the near future. So what are we going to work on in 2018? We've heard for a very long time that the South Pavilion OR and the York Street campus truly needs a surgeon lounge. What is there right now is inadequate. We've heard you. And so we're putting a lot of efforts into recreating and creating an area where you guys can go in between cases. We will have that the project starting relatively soon. It'll be located between the South Pavilion and West Pavilion, and it'll be easily accessible to everyone. We're gonna work on teamwork. Without the team, we can't get anything done. So our emphasis over the next year, you'll see different groups working together and trying to improve the way that we function. We know that when we work as a team, things get done better and more efficiently. The Zigo room. Some of you have been in the Zigo room rarely, but over the next year, as technology changes, we're going to be putting in plans to put in a second Zigo room. This is one of the highest utilized rooms. We have one on the St. Raphael's campus, and we're on one here on the York Street campus, and people are knocking down the door. So as we continue to grow and try to expand, as we lose outpatients to outpatient surgery centers, we have to keep growing and figure out what's the future of medicine, and the Zigo room is that for us. I already mentioned the Stone Center and the SPD renovations over at SRC. The other thing that we really need to do from our quality and safety is work on how we transfer our patients to one another. As we have this unique opportunity with Susan being the vice president of the surgical service floors to be able to take patients from the pre-op area, intra-op, and continue that over to the post-op care as well. So we'll be able to look at the entire continuum and be able to provide a different level of care that we haven't in the past. So what have we done over the past year for some of the operations? The SPOR renovations. This is one of our operating rooms. This is your operating room. As we went from the East Pavilion OR down to South Pavilion OR, this represents one of the renovations of the rooms that we've done. We put together the clinical coordinator. I know you all have felt this. This is the Minogue role. This is the guy who's putting you into different rooms because there's a room available or you're running behind. We have this person who can go and coordinate the nursing care from each one of our pavilions. Prior to this role, I was getting a lot of phone calls. This is my favorite thing that we've accomplished over the last year because I get less phone calls. I know you all feel, and I've heard it. This is a very successful accomplishment, and people are getting done earlier. We've taken over cleaning operations, and our first case on time starts is Max that have improved over the last year, going from 55% up into the mid-60s. What are we going to work on for 2018? Turnover time. You all hear it. We hear from you. You feel it. And our emphasis of the operations team over the next year will be to improve this for everyone. Staggered starts in the morning. How many times have you guys said, hey, where's my anesthesiologist? Well, that anesthesiologist is starting 3 rooms at 7:30. So over the next year, we're phasing out to different pavilions where we'll have structured staggered starts, and it'll be standardized for each time in each pavilion, the number of staggered starts that we have there. And we already mentioned that the specialty centers that we're going to be working on with you guys, and we're excited to put the plans forth for the Stone Center. Automated text messages. We're working on ways to get communication, not only between the surgical teams and the anesthesiologists, but also to surgeons. when the patient's being transported from the pre-op holding area to the OR, we want you guys to know, we don't want you to have to get the message once the patient's in the OR. That's wasted opportunities. We're working on ways that we can use Epic to automate these messages to you so you know where your patients are. It's almost like a GPS for your patients. And this is just the turnover time. I'll again turn it over to Susan.
This is our people development group. Thank you. This is our people development group. This is basically what you call employee engagement scores. These are the units that we highlighted last year that had less employee engagement than we would have liked. We put some things in place for each of these teams, and we really did make progress in terms of those. So we're proud of that. So looking at the big picture, though, this is our next year goal. So if you look at Periop overall, our engagement over the last fiscal year 15 was kind of 4.91, then 4.88. This year it went up to 5.04. So we are making progress. This is another thing that's very difficult to move. And our surgical nursing engagement scores, this is the inpatient units, also went up. I don't know why the other one isn't on here. I apologize for that. And then the APPs for surgery also went up. So Joe Mendes and his team, they report up through me also. So that also improved over last year. So we're good about that and proud of it. We still have work to do. We're never where we really want to be. So we'll be working hard on this. The other thing I want to mention under people is Olivia. She's your service lead. And I think she's done a tremendous job at this campus. And I'm hoping that all of you would agree that she's been a huge addition. That's something we've done over the last year too. So, this is the surgeon and anesthesiologist together engagement. There's a modest improvement, and it appears we moved from some disengaged to content, which is good. We're on the right track, but we're still not anywhere near where we need to be. There's a lot more work to be done on this, but at least we are going in the correct direction. This is patient and family experience, Periop, medical procedures, which is GI, and then inpatient general surgery. They're all stories that are positive. They're all going in the right direction. A couple things we did this year, we opened a family lounge at the St. Raphael's campus, which has been well received by our families who used to be sitting on the floors in the hallways over there on busy days. And we also started to look at surgeon scores for patient experience, so we can get your individual scores. We have shared those with the ENT department and GYN. So coming this next year, we'll be meeting with all of you to really share your surgeon score so you can see. And I believe it's broken down by inpatient and outpatient. It's interesting because there's a wide variety in what your scores can be for inpatients and outpatients. So we're hoping that you can help us work on these scores for next year. We're doing well, but we still have a ways to go. We're in the 51st percentile, which means we're about middle of the road. Better than 50%, worse than 50%. We want to get up there to at least I'd love to be in the 90th, but I'd be happy with 75th and above. So, Max, you going to do safety and quality?
Sure.
You want me to do it?
I do.
Okay.
So as you can see here, the general trend has been that we've had sort of ups and downs in the number of serious safety events. And this, we hope, is dovetailing with the story of HRO and high reliability behaviors. So when you hear language in the operating room from your circulating nurse or your scrub tech, and if someone says something like, "I'm concerned about this," you know that that should be a word that triggers in your mind that this is something more than just the average passing comment from that person. And as we've educated people about those behaviors and how teams interact and create safe behaviors, we have seen at first, and we collected more data, we saw this trend up between 2014 and 16 of events that were occurring as we got more transparency. And now we're starting to see a trend down. This is what we expect over time. And as I said, consistent with it. This is our goal. We want to get to zero. We want to have absolutely no preventable events of harm. And so the only way we do that is through people and through engagement. You've all heard the adage, no margin, no mission. Right? We have a mission in this organization. We know what it is. If we are not fiscally responsible, we cannot accomplish that mission. So the results really in terms of financial performance this year have been driven at the system level by the Clinical Governance Committee. You're probably familiar with it now because any new device or new item that you might want to request funnels through this committee, which is made up of 22 physicians, 20 physicians, 2 nurses, and 2 finance representatives. Largely a clinician-driven process, and the whole idea is to think about value. Think about what are the items that we need to have the best outcomes and the cost required to get us there. Prior to the institution of the CGC, we were saving about $5 million a year through our processes. We hit 9.1 this year, and this is the story of a clinician-driven process. So we have some big, hairy, audacious goals for next year, and I want to wrap up here and just leave it open for discussion. We want to have an engaged team, and these are all goals that dovetail with that vision statement that we covered at the beginning. So we want to have an engaged team. Our engagement right now kind of hovers, depending on the statistics you're looking at, between the 20th percentile and the 50th percentile. We want to get to the 90th percentile. We want to have a highly engaged, committed staff. I left innovation blank. I did so intentionally. I really want that to be an open discussion that we have moving forward, thinking about, in terms of innovation, do we want to be driving new procedures? Do we want to be thinking about outcomes and reporting and collection in an entirely new way? Do we want to think about becoming transparent with what we're doing in a way that's not been seen anywhere really in academic medicine at this point? Patient-centered care, we want to keep the patient at the center of what we're doing. Right now, as Susan mentioned, we're about the 50th percentile. We've made significant progress. We want to hit the 90th percentile. That will take a lot of work. World-class outcomes, we mentioned 0 serious safety events. And then lastly, transitions of care. We have too many patients that come back to the institution, and the dashboards, I think Pat's been working on procedural-based dashboards, demonstrate this, and they demonstrate that we have a lot of readmissions across the institution. So we want to think about how we are achieving safe discharge, certainly under our purview in the ambulatory setting, and patients who are really ready to go home. So we are 8:23, so just about on schedule. I'd like to open it up for questions and discussion. Happy to share any thoughts with you. Obviously, this is just a very high-level overview of the kinds of things we've been working on. Thank you.
How do you measure surgeon anesthesiologist engagement?
So that's the Yale Medicine Survey that everyone should have received. It is an advisory board tool that is standardized and performed across like institutions around the country. And then there's a bell curve statistical analysis that is developed. So our scores, I think I showed, had moved from the disengaged into the content. That was the big jump that we saw. It's a really pretty modest improvement. And if you look at it, we're actually kind of hovering around the 15th percentile in terms of engaged medical staff across the country. So we know we have a lot of work to do, and Om Deshpande and Tom Balsasak, Joni Hansen have all been working on strategies to improve engagement across the institution. For us, some of the drivers there have to do with the relationship between the school and the hospital. There's substantial support that the hospital offers to almost every department. It's not terribly well understood in some areas, and so we think that drives some of the engagement.
Looks like the turnover time's sitting around 37 minutes.
Yep.
Could you just comment on what, like, a private surgery center turnover would be and what you might expect? Is that achievable? Is that not achievable in a hospital setting? Or where are we with respect to other hospitals around the country?
Yeah, I'll ask Trevor. Trevor's really kind of heading up this effort. So you can blame him.
You know, it's different between ambulatory surgical centers and inpatient. Ambulatory surgical centers probably hover right around that, depending on what service it is, probably right around that low 20s. And we would like to get to that, and that's one of the things with putting the Stone Center together. We try to put in the ambulatory surgery model there to be efficient, have standardized cleaning, standardized staff, standardized kits. There's a lot that goes into that you would need in order to be that efficient. Right now, we have way too many variables, and we're trying to simplify it to make it more efficient for all. Right now, we don't have, we have to get to that.
Thinking about that. One of the things we just announced to our ORAs, those are the people that clean the rooms between the cases. We used to have them kind of in one big bucket. They ran for blood, they transported patients, they cleaned the rooms. What we did was we separated them into 2 groups, and we have a transport runner team, and now we have teams that are just responsible to turn over the ORs that are going to stay in the pavilions. They're not going to leave the pavilions. They're not going to be in the rover queue. Their whole job is just to turn over the rooms. So we're hoping that that's also going to help us with turnover.
That's part of that. That's the simplification process. And one of the other things for the anesthesiologist is, seeing the patient before the other patient's out of the room. So we're working on each step, the cleaning process, the nursing process, the equipment, and the anesthesiologist. And then what we need from you is the paperwork. That is the limiting factor at some points. There's something wrong with the consent. There's something wrong with HMP. Marking. So each person, part of the team, owns part of that turnover time. So we're going to work on each process.
And the things working against us is the complexity of what we do, the variety of what we do, and some of that we're not going to be able to change. We'll never hit that benchmark, 11 minutes in a single specialty ambulatory ophthalmology center. It's not going to happen realistically here. We can certainly do better than we're doing, and we want to and will, but it is multifactorial. It's a big challenge. We're hoping that in establishing a place like McGivney or a Stone Center that will simplify, sort of create a little module within a more complex environment that will allow us to execute that to a greater degree. But there are some realities to working in a large academic medical center that we'll struggle with. Yes.
Signaling system between whenever, like the marking and the 24-hour update, how we can better communicate with the nurses who are seeing 5 patients in the morning, and we have to, kind of try to find them, figure out who's taking care of our patient, let them know, like, hey, the marking's up, or has there been some kind of thought in that?
Yeah, absolutely.
We have multiple projects that are rolling out this year. Part of that was what I was talking about, that texting system, to notify the resident surgeon, almost create a care team for that one patient and have that communication, what's needed to get that patient in. That's the other part of the staggered starts, to not have the same pre-op nurse, pre-op the same patients all going to go at 7:30, get that bottleneck coming out of EAS. So that's one of the other things that we hope to have the pre-op nurses more available to you, to have that communication of what is needed. Things to come.
I just want to publicly recognize these guys, their efforts, because I've been on health for the 5 years that I've been here. So health is a very active executive leadership committee, and now Pat serves on this as well. And the transition that we've seen with respect to the performance of the OR and the perioperative services since they've taken over has been amazing. No one can understand or realize the amount of work that this takes. Mac's leadership in leading this, working with Marat Ganel, who also runs PELC. Trevor is like the anesthesiologist's anesthesiologist. I mean, he's amazing. I think many of you worked with him. He's one of the few individuals who realizes this is a service industry, and you are the customer as the surgeon, and I think he really does the great job. And Susan has been fantastic with respect to patient experience and physician engagement. So they deserve a lot of credit. Understand how hard their job is, and we should all work together to see what we can do to help them. But thank you very much.
Thanks.
Let's have a good weekend.